So hello again, everyone, and welcome to the sixth event of our Dealing with Brexit series. Before I start, I'd like to remind you that captions are available if you need them, so just click on the captions button at the bottom. My name is Laetitia. I'm a project manager at Extracts, a Manchester-based development organisation for outdoor arts. I am a white woman in my very late 20s. I have shorter length brown hair with bangs. I'm wearing today a black top with a beige cardigan. I use the pronouns she and her. Just to remind you that the session dealing with Brexit are designed really to feel like an informal space. So just to encourage information sharing between peers all around touring post-Brexit. We are supported by Arts Council England, and this is all part of Extract's ongoing work to support really outdoor arts professionals to navigate the challenges of Brexit. Today, we're joined by two brilliant outdoor arts companies who performed in Belgium about, 10 days ago, maybe? So we have Silvia from Mimbre. Thanks, Silvia, for joining us. And Nikki and Tim from the Show Globe. I'm sure most of you are already familiar with the two of them. And before I pass on to them, let me just tell you a bit about how the session is going to work. So first, we'll hear from all speakers today, who will share their experience of preparing for an engagement in Europe and their experience of crossing the channel to bring equipment and people into the EU. So this is meant really to just kick off the conversation, and we'll then have about 40 minutes altogether to just have a discussion about some of the challenges you may face and some of the questions you might have. Again, this is very informal. We're just trying to be supportive. So if you have any questions, feel free to come in, raise your hand, or pop your questions in the chat if you don't feel comfortable asking your questions out loud. Just a word of warning that everything happening in the sessions should not be taken as legal advice, but just more just some pointers as to how to prepare for touring in Europe. So I'll pass on to Silvia now.
Hi everyone, I'm Silvia. I'm a white woman in my mid-40s. I've got dark brown hair tied up in a high bun, and I've got hoop earring, and I'm wearing like a thick scarf, black with white stripes. So hi everyone, I'm Silvia and I'm Joint Artist Director of Mimbre. Mimbre is an acrobatic theatre company based in London with a team of performers of both European and British nationality. Just thought it was be worth mentioning that. Amongst the many activities that we do, one of our main activities is outdoor touring. So we've been touring extensively in Europe and in UK since 2000. With a variety of shows and in different countries. So we've got quite a lot of experience with European touring pre-Brexit, and we're now discovering the joys and sorrows of touring post-Brexit. It's also important to mention that we are an NPO, which means we are a national portfolio organisation. So we receive regular funding from Arts Council England. This helps us to cover some of our core costs, and it has a big impact on the financial decisions that we take when we prepare tours, when we do tour logistics, and also we can decide on sort of fee negotiations and how much room we have within that. So we might be in a different position to other companies that might not receive regular funding. I just thought it would be more worth mentioning, because we probably operate slightly differently from other companies. So I'll be talking primarily about our experience of going to City of Wings Showcase in Belgium sort of a couple of weeks ago. But we do have a lot of experience of touring in Europe. So if you've got questions about anything that I might not have covered in the next 9 minutes, please feel free to ask at the end of Tim and Nikki's presentation as well. So we went to Belgium a couple of weeks ago. It's a showcase, a big showcase. So we decided that we needed to go to rekindle our relationship with Europe and with European promoters and bookers, with whom we hadn't had much contact since pre-COVID and pre-Brexit. So this was our first trip to Europe post-COVID and post-Brexit. The show that we took to Belgium is called Lifted, and it's a three-hander acrobalance performance with very little props. and it can be packed in 3 suitcases, which can travel as sports equipment. We also use 3 chairs and a small table, which festivals can provide as is stuff that you can find pretty much anywhere. So it's a very, very portable, easy show to travel with. And the 3 performers that are in the show currently are 1 British national, 1 European national, and 1 with mixed nationality, so British and European. So the show is very self-contained, and that's why we thought it would be a great show to sort of start our European touring again, because we thought it would be quite easy and not too much logistics involved, because we really wanted to test the territory again and see what kind of hurdle might be once traveling. And also we decided not to travel by van, but we traveled by Eurostar so that we could check how border controls and all of that was going there. And also we're trying to be a little bit more green. So we're trying to get trains nowadays, at least with this show, because it's very portable as much as we can. Actually, Letitia, do you want to share? I just have a picture of the set just to show you how simple the show is, because we mostly use the show is all based on acrobalance and acrobatics. So we've got a carpet. Under the carpet there are sort of puzzle mats that can be packed up really neatly in 2 suitcases, and then we've got 3 chairs and 1 table. These are the chairs that we normally use in our show, and the first picture with the blue carpet are the chairs that the festival provided. So they're not like structural to the show, it's just kind of backdrop, we sit on them, and that's how we start the show. So we can ask for them pretty much anywhere, something that we can find anywhere. And that kind of simplifies a little bit our travels and the amount of equipment that we transport. The show is purely physical. We've got a couple of more pictures just to show what it is and why we decided to take it into Europe as the first show abroad. Just a little bit of visual as a background. So it's 3 performers doing acrobalance, pyramids, and it's kind of all linked up by a theme rather than a narrative, and a choreographical musical score as well. The costumes are also very simple, so can be packed up super neatly. They're sort of quite pedestrian, and they pack up really small. Thanks, Letitia. So we travel to this showcase by Eurostar, and we asked the festival to provide the chairs, the table, and also PA. We generally don't travel with our own PA system anyway, and that never is a problem. And so we transported 3 pieces of luggage, 1 containing that blue carpet that you saw, which packs up in a kind of a normal sort of big suitcase, like trolley suitcase. And then the puzzle mats, they pack up in 2 piles. So we've got 2 suitcases, which are about, the puzzle mats are about 60 by 60 centimeters. So the suitcases are big, but are not oversized. So they can neatly fit into the scanning machine, which is kind of the first hurdle to clear when traveling by train or plane. So if they fit in the scanning machine, from our experience, and also now post-Brexit experience, we don't tend to be questioned very much. I will say that we decided not to go for the carnet because I sort of consulted and talked to a few other performers that travel with sort of normal suitcases across Europe, and we decided as a company to just cross the border like that. Normally this stuff would be declared as sports equipment when we travel by plane, and we did the same for the Eurostar, for the train travel. We didn't have any questions at the borders. They seemed to be more sort of busy and worried about checking passport and COVID pass as we were actually getting off in France. It would have been the same anyway if we would have sort of got off in Belgium. And that's how we sort of crossed the border, and it was all pretty smooth, I must say, no problems there. We were in Belgium for about 5 days in total, so we didn't need to worry about any visa or working permits for the British performer that is touring with us at the moment. And in general, our tours are quite short. So we go out into Europe for a weekend or maybe a couple of weekends. So we keep traveling back and forward back to UK. And we're never away for longer or extended sort of contracts or period of time. So at the moment, we don't foresee any difficulties with working permits, at least with the current team and the current mix of passports and nationalities that we've got. If we were to stay out for longer periods of time, we would have to start counting the days that each British performer is spending in Europe, including holidays. So that will get a little bit more complicated. But for the kind of touring that we're doing at the moment is not quite relevant to us. And also our performers get offered sort of longer contracts during the summer, so they tend not to need having to do other jobs and having to go independently back into Europe for other jobs. At least that's how it's been working so far. I must say that going into Belgium was and going to the showcase and back into Europe was a great decision. It was great to sort of be seen again in Europe because I must say, in our experience, a lot of promoters had almost forgotten, even though we had been touring in Europe for most of our, the last pretty much 15 to 20 years. If you're not in their face, they kind of put you at the back of their mind. So it was really good to be there. And I had lots of conversations with different bookers from different countries. And I must say, they're really keen. I just think it's important to say that they're really keen to keep the relationship with British companies. They really want British companies to go and work in Europe. They're also equally quite worried about the logistics of bringing shows with lots of props and lots of equipment. Is totally doable. And of course, you will hear Nikki and team experience. But in conversation with them, and I had quite a few conversations, quite a lot of networking, that was a little bit the concern in terms of logistics, clearing customs and extra costs. So maybe something to keep in mind, depending on the show that you would be planning to bring into Europe, especially if you're not used to sort of perform and tour in Europe. We have another few shows in Europe, specifically in Spain, Sweden, and Germany, maybe in Denmark. We're planning to travel by plane because they're too far to travel by van. And unfortunately, too expensive to travel by train. So when it's not sort of close to the border in France or Belgium, I found that the festivals are not very keen on paying the extra costs of traveling, allowing the company to travel by train. So a lot of the time we're just forced to take flights, despite we're really trying to keep as green as possible, but it's not always possible costs-wise. I would say that in general, we're definitely spending more time in preparing and checking logistics when traveling to Europe. But I've realized pretty quickly that we're not in the position to reflect that in our fee structure. I just wanted to mention that, as I found that more and more festivals are already negotiating more regularly than pre-Brexit, I would say, or at least in the last 5 years. But again, I would highlight that Mimbre, as an MPO, as we receive regular funding, we are in the position to absorb some of the costs of the extra administration, at least at the moment. I don't want to say that it will always be the case, but we have a buffer there, so we are in a particular position. But at the moment, I wouldn't be able to add the cost of the extra administration on top of our fees, because they simply wouldn't get. It will be really hard to negotiate those. The future of touring in Europe for Mimbre, I think we've decided we will have a new show next summer in 2023. And we've decided there will still be a three-hander with very minimal props and very minimal set. And that's how we will tour in Europe going forward. We will sort of we do have ambition for bigger shows with more complex sets, but I think at the moment we kind of like keeping them to UK And then the more we travel in Europe and we understand the logistics, the cost of carnets, the extra time to cross the channel, the extra cost potentially of being away for longer for our performers and all of that, then we will definitely consider bringing more complex show across the channel. But at the moment, also because that's what we've been doing for many years, we sort of, our specialty is like three-hander shows, and it works for us. So at the moment we'll kind of concentrate on that going forward. Again, I'm not saying that you should not sort of go for bigger and more complex things, but maybe if it's the first time that you kind of planning a tour in Europe, I would probably advise to keep it as simple as possible, so you don't have to travel with lots and lots of stuff. But again, that's just our experience and my particular advice. But I'm sure things will also get smoother, because it already seems a lot easier than I thought to sort of travel abroad and deal with promoters. But yeah, definitely go for Europe. It's great. It's great to be back out there. We had a great time. Good to network. We met lots of people, and I would highly recommend it to all companies to try to tour in Europe. It's just that you have to be prepared with dealing with all the extra logistics. I think I'm pretty much on the 10 minutes mark.
Thank you, Silvia. It was really, really helpful. Thanks for sharing your experience. And I think we'll hear a bit of a different experience with Nikki and Tim. So yeah, over to you.
Okay, hello. I'll let Tim introduce first.
Hi, my name is Tim. I'm from the Show Globe. I'm a 6'4". I'm 6'4" with short brown hair. I'm a 44-year-old. He and him wearing a white shirt. My face has been described as lived in.
I am Nikki Kennett. I am the co-director of the Show Globe and also Tim's wife. I'm in my mid-40s. I'm white with slightly tan skin, blonde hair that's just below my shoulders. I'm wearing a green top with a grey cardigan over, and my pronouns are she and her. We are a touring, roaming walkabout act. So the Show Globe is a big physical structure. It's a classic snow globe shape, complete with the base. And we have here a picture to save me trying to describe what that is. So we've been touring with that. So we created that in 2016. I used to be a touring acrobat before that, touring internationally. As part of a few different companies, got injured and then had to create something else. So the Show Globe is a big physical structure that was made for me to be able to not have to do something too painful after a fair few injuries. Obviously, it was made pre-Brexit. We've toured a lot with it. So we've toured a lot in Europe through 2017, 2018 and 2019. Traditionally, we tour for several months at a time across Europe, linking festivals without coming back to the UK in between. And when we do that, we tour with it either in a trailer, so it's fully built, and we tow that behind our van. And if we are working further afield, then we fly with it. So it does actually come apart into 10 suitcases of sort of normal proportion that goes into the hold luggage rather than having to travel freight. So we've also blown it to Japan, Kuwait, Russia, the UAE and China for shows over the last few years. Obviously not the last couple of years because of COVID. So yeah, it is a big beast of a structure. We are the absolute opposites to Mimbre in as far as kit that we have, and there's no trying to get anyone to provide any stuff for us. So we are what we are. It's 180 odd kilos of steel structure, and that comes with its own problems. As far as continuing to tour now, I will hand over to to Tim a little bit to describe our experience of the first ATA Carnet, bringing everything into Europe with all of the kit in a van.
Yeah, so we managed to buy a van which the Globe fits in whole, which is fantastic and great for touring. We too went to Ypres, which was really good. It was really good to be back in the performing arts and to be back on the street theatre circuit again, and to see our European family, which was really a lot of fun and really great to make a lot of connections again, which was really good. But this time, it was the first time we've done it since COVID and since Brexit. So it was the first time where we had to negotiate crossing the borders and doing that properly. So unlike other shows, we feel that we can't get away due to the fact that it doesn't just fit in one suitcase, it fits in a van, and it's going to be very obvious to anybody as we're crossing a border that there's something in there that we needed to do an ATA Carnet, which is fabulous. I recommend them. They were great. It was fun.
A lot of mental stress beforehand, but without it actually being as tough as we thought.
No, basically what an ATA Carnet does is, so when you go across the border with your kit, you are exporting your stuff out of the UK, and then you are importing it into your into France or into Europe or into any other country, and then when you come back again, you're then exporting it out of the EU and then importing it back into the UK. And so what an ATA Carnet allows you to do is write down a list of everything you're taking so that you don't have to pay duty when you import or export on any of those occasions. So it's actually, the ATA Carnet is used in 80 different countries. When we fly, we've never used an ATA Carnet before. We've just turned up with the suitcases, and everything's been fine, and we've never had an issue and never been encouraged to do it, and known people who have done it and that's made it a little bit more complicated for them. But with the border to France, we felt that we definitely needed one.
Technically, we should have had one for all the flights that we've been doing as well, and we've been lucky not to have been stopped. We could have been in trouble with that. It was inexperience rather than anything else that has made us fly without one before.
I'm not sure whether we'd do one. Will we? Well,
for another time.
Debate for another time.
We'll do that after this.
So we were very lucky that Nikki managed to get a small grant, which the government were giving to get help with Brexit and travelling over broad borders with Brexit. And so we had a 2 or 3 hour meeting with somebody who was training and had trained to work out all the logistics of it all. But from what I gather, he'd just done it all from the internet anyway, and it wasn't the most, in the end, turned out to be the most useful thing. But
no, we've learned far more from actually talking directly to the London Chamber of Commerce, which is the thing that you need to do. So for anyone who's going to be transporting kit in and out, there is a website and there is a telephone number, and those two things really are all you need. The 2 hours of one-to-one tuition from somebody that the government spent £1,100 sending us on was pretty much a waste of time, and we gleaned everything we needed from speaking directly to the London Chamber of Commerce, which is actually very, very helpful and very patient.
And friendly. And they have a phone, and we've got two numbers here, the London Chamber of Commerce and the HMRC. HMRC don't tend to pick up their phone. The London Chamber of Commerce have always picked up the phone and have always talked to us nicely and have been really patient with, especially with me, because I don't get on with computers or filling out forms very well. So they've been really good, and they've talked us through it all. So you need to register with them. So you register with the London Chamber of Commerce, and that can take a day.
We can pull that link up with the help of our glamorous assistants in the background there. So
there it is.
Here is the website that you will need, and from there, once you've found that correct page for ATA Carnet, if you scroll down to the bottom of that, so this is the London Chamber of Commerce, International Trade, and right down at the bottom it has how to apply for an ATA Carnet. And then if we stop there, so a little bit more scrolling, tiny bit of scrolling, so it's got ATA Carnet for existing customers and for new customers, so there's two links there. So when you're first doing it, you're obviously a new customer, so your first thing to do is to click onto that, and then you will need to create yourself a profile. So there is a new user register here. So if you click on that little blue section there. Okay, so your first step as an ATA newbie is to fill this in to register yourself as a company. So it's quite straightforward. And then within, I think, 24 hours, we had a response from them saying that our user profile had been set up. And we were then able to log on and a very simple sort of click through to create a new ATA carnet. And then from that, depending how complicated the amount of stuff is that you have, it is a case of listing every single thing. So I have a little copy of that, again, from the things that have been sent. So it is, so
that's the
okay, so this is your general list. So you list everything on that website and it creates this paper document for you, which is the thing that you take through. It ends up being this big fat booklet that you actually travel with, but it's all created online. So it lists you listing what it weighs. Is a grey area, but definitely what the value of it is, but you can make that up. They understand that the actual props are custom built for the most part. And so there is a little bit of leeway. So we have a section which is number 19 as a touring theatre company. So that is one of the things that you'll get to fill in there. And then it's creating a list of every single thing that you think that you'll take.
So you can get away with a toolbox. So you can say a toolbox of hand tools, and as long as there's nothing electric or expensive in there, then that will be all right. But otherwise, so for the flower globe, we've listed 4 large leaves, 2 small leaves, 6
butterflies, 10 ladybirds. Like literally everything is
1 lily, one water lily. So each thing is, and then you have to give a value to that as well. And then each one is numbered. And then, so if, for instance, on this one, which has been covered up to, so we don't reveal trade secrets. We've got 2 sets of scenery, so one for the snow scenery and one for the flower scenery. So I think it's from 1 to 134 is all the flower scenery, and then from 134 to 164 is the snow scenery. And you can number, so when you do go through the carnet, you can say we're carrying items 1 to 134, which would be all the flowers.
So if we flip to that yellow page, which is the next one there, Tisha, that's the one. So when we actually arrived, this was the page that we had to fill in, and you'll see on there that you can see number 1 to 134. So that was us listing all of the things from our general list that we were exporting on that particular adventure. And what we've done is, because we do spend quite a bit of time in Europe, and we will be over for 2 months solid in the summer, and then we're also going back, we've got bookings at Christmas. So there'll be 2 different things that we're taking. So we've opted to get a year's worth of carnet. So we've overestimated the number of trips that we'll be doing in and out of the EU. You don't have to have it exact. We've said 20, and if we don't go 20 times, it doesn't matter.
And that's one of the, when you fill out the online portal with the London Chamber of Commerce to get the ATA carnet, the first question they ask you is how many trips are you going on, and then how many transits, and then to what countries. And so if you put in the whole world, and you're doing a lot of trips, and that's going to cost a lot more money than if you're just going to Europe, and you can do a 2-month, a 6-month, or a yearly ATA carnet. So we've gone for a yearly ATA carnet. We've said we're going to do 20 trips with 10 transits, I think, which we won't do, but we can, if you run out of vouchers, or you run out of things for the customs to stamp, then you have to get a new ATA carnet. So it's worth
paying for another one.
Yeah, so it's worth having more vouchers than less. So you get to charge twice for the ATA carnet. One is the cost of the ATA carnet, which was about £300, was it?
Thereabouts.
And then also, depending on how much the value of what you're taking across borders, you have to pay an insurance, and you can either pay that all up front, and ours were on 20 grand's worth of kit. Ours worked out at 7 grand, so we were like, no, I'm not going to do that.
They would give you the £7,000 back, but you have to have that in entirety to give them up front. Otherwise, you pay a smaller fee, thank God, of £300. So all in, it was £650 for us for the year, and we won't get any of that back. So that is a cost we've factored into touring life for us, to be able to go in and out for a year without then having to do any extras.
Yeah, and if we wanted to go to, we were thinking about what about if we get gigs in the UAE or America or Japan, but then it's better to do, we think, a 2-month one. You can have more than one ATA carnet at once, so you can have one which covers Europe for a year whilst going to America or Australia for 2 months, and then just doing a 2-month one, which would be slightly cheaper.
So that yellow page you've got there in front of you at the moment is just showing what items from our general list we did. This was then sort of looked at we did the tunnel. So we drove, and then you have to go to a particular place beforehand to get this checked over, which is called Stop 24, which we have a map. So all of these will be available to you to have a look at. So that is the map location of where you need to go to. So it's not at the Eurotunnel port.
It is the service station on the junction before the Eurotunnel port. And if you just put in Stop 24 services or Stop 24 into Google Maps, it will take you straight there. So you can just put the sat nav on. And then when you get there, there's a picture to the left of it. That right? Yeah, you go, for us, because we have a high van and we can't go in the normal car park, so we get ushered around with the lorries. If you get underneath the height restrictions, then you come in from another entrance, but you will end up in the same place anyway, which is the 2 pictures to the right. And
that's where you're aiming for to go and get your carnet stamped. And
so then we took a blank carnet there. We got given our carnet. We didn't fill it out. We didn't do anything. A very nice gentleman behind the counter came out and sat down with us and filled out all the information we needed and told us what we needed to do and what we needed to write in and what happened next. And then he then puts it through a hatch and custom stamp it.
So you have a bit of a wait there. So when you're making a crossing, you need to allow for enough time for that carnet
at least
to be
half an hour
taken away, and then they take your telephone number and they text you when it's finished, and then you collect it, and then you can drive to the Eurotunnel or to Dover if you're getting the ferry. But it depends how many people are there in that queue, how many people they've got to process. It can be anywhere from sort of 15-20 minutes, or you could be there for an hour or so.
And when we came back, on the way back, you go to the same place. So when you finish your journey and you've got to come back into England, you come off and you just go back. And because we'd already done the paperwork, it was 10 or 15 minutes it took for them to do it. But the Customs Pro is an outsourced agency in between you and the customs officer. So in France, the customs officer just stamps it, but here you've got a different organisation in the middle, but they were very helpful and they'll fill out all the paperwork for you. So as long as you've got your carnet, as long as you've got your carnet, they will do that. Will help you with it.
So they're understanding of the fact that lots of people are doing this for the very first time, and that it's not all massive hauliers that are coming in and out. The important thing with the carnet is that it's everything you're bringing back in is exactly the same as what you took out. That's what they're looking for. They don't physically check, but should they check, they have the ability to. Should they check and there's any discrepancy, then you're going to be paying importation tax. So for us, things like one of the things that we travel with if we're doing one of the interiors for the show globe is bubble mixture. If we're doing the sea sphere, so we use a lot of bubble mixture. But what we would do instead now is source that in the EU, because we would have to bring back the exact same. We couldn't bring back empty bottles. We would then be taxed on the bubble mixture that we've used technically, whether they would or wouldn't. But we were told an interesting story when we were talking to the London Chamber of Commerce lady on the phone, getting some help with our carnet, and we were saying, you're going to now be bombarded with phone calls from loads of circus people trying to do this for the first time. Lots of strange theatre things that they're trying to find a code for to fill in. And she said that her experience when she first started doing it 20 odd years ago, whenever it was, is that she had a circus company that had, from the UK going into Europe, they were taking lions with them back in those days. And when they were performing, or some horrendous thing happened,
it was in Romania, wasn't it? And somebody let the lions out.
Someone let them out.
And then it was tragically, they had to be shot, which was obviously awful. But then because they were on the carnet.
And cremated when they were overseas. So they were cremated because that was in line with how big cats had to be disposed of in Romania at the time. So then they were trying to return back to the UK.
And they got charged tax on the fact that they had imported the lions and not brought them back again. So
So yes,
it could have been worse. Our experience was better than that, so that's good. The last picture there is that we got given that by French customs. There's people in the UK couldn't tell us where to get it stamped on the other side. So as soon as you go through customs on the UK side, this is for the tunnel, the French customs is just behind, or still on the UK side, just behind the passport control on the left hand side. You just pull in there.
Before you even go onto the tunnel,
you pull in there, and they will stamp your documents for you, and it looks like some strange office building that isn't really an office building. It's a bit weird, but you just go in and somebody very friendly stamps it for you. And then they gave me this piece of paper, so if they're not open, then you can go on the other side, and that's the directions to the customs on the other side.
But it's absolutely your responsibility as the exporter to get it stamped on the UK side, to then get it stamped again from the French side. No one's going to be checking this for you. No one's going to be chasing you down to do it. You then have to get it stamped when you're coming back on the French side, and then again on the UK side, and that is down to you. And if you don't do that, you are liable for paying the import tax when you have to hand it all in at the end of the year, at the end of your carnet time, and then they'll be checking to make sure it was stamped either side on each of those journeys.
And photo the stamps as well, just in case you lose them, because the International Chamber of Commerce, you have to send it back to them at the end of the year, and then they work out where you've been and what you've done, and that you've done everything correctly.
So some of the other questions. So for us, we tend to cross by the Eurotunnel because it's an easy and quick way to do it. It'd be the same kind of process if we were going on the ferry. We do stay out when we're doing a couple of months. We don't come back in between because we tour with a vehicle rather than flying when we're in Europe. So we tend to work out a tour going from place to place. So we'll stay cheaply in between times. We usually sort of butt it onto there's a 3-week festival that we quite often do in Germany. So normally when we're doing that, we'll be going from that to the next weekend, the next weekend, the next weekend, sort of, and keep that going for a couple of months. So for us as British passport holders, we have to keep within the 90 and 180 days for the Schengen area. So that is a definite consideration for us, and will be for any other British passport touring artists. We've run out of time, I think, so I'm going to hand back over with any questions.
Thank you. I think that was really, really helpful. I'm sure it'll be very helpful to everyone doing the same journey. Thanks for taking pictures and documenting all of your journey.
This is one of the on the way back. You get on the French side, the office is in the duty-free area. So when you're coming back on the tunnel, you go to duty-free, and there's a tax office there, and then they will stamp.
Sorry about that. That's the bread van arriving in the village.
I think it sounds. Great, thank you so much, Nikki and team. I guess we've got about 15 minutes for questions. So if anyone has any questions to ask Silvia or Nikki and Tim, feel free to raise your hand or come in. Yes, Andrew. You're on mute.
Hi there. Sorry I joined late, but what I heard was really useful, and I'll catch up with the recording. Quick question. What about traveling between the European countries? Are there any considerations in terms of, going between France and Germany or whatever?
No, once you're in the EU area, it's counted as one area. We're not sure whether Denmark counts as that, but then certainly in the Schengen area it is.
So for transporting equipment, it's fine. As far as working and visas, each country does have its own quirks, and so it's worth investigating those, whereas you're still fine most of the time for the 90 and 180. There are sort of, for example, Denmark, you have to prove that you're a professional artist, and they want you to be on a program at a ticketed event, and then that counts as getting in visa free. Belgium you need to show that you're a professional touring artist in some other way. So France, not so much. So each country has got its different rules with that, but not as far as driving through with your equipment, you're fine.
Thank you, it's really helpful. Liz?
Hi, thanks. We went out in November last year with the carnet, and we were trying to research whether we needed an ENS document. We went round in circles via Chamber of Trades and customs agents, and eventually, after a lot of research, the customs agent we went with said, yes, you do. Did you have an ENS document? When we arrived in France, we had the document to hand, and they seem to all be working it out, don't they, as they're going along. The French customs official looked a little bit perplexed with the carnet, but muddling through. And then we said, and do you need this? And he went, oh, yes, I was going to ask for that next. And he just stamped that.
Now this time we've been.
And now we're coming out again in May, and again we've been told we do need it. So it's a safety and security document. You didn't come across that at all?
We thought that we didn't need that because we were under Section 19 as a touring theatre company. So that was the advice from the guy that the government funded.
Okay.
I don't know how much I trust that though, but that was what we went on.
And nobody asked us for an ENS. Nobody checked.
No. And then the Channel tunnels, we've just last week been in touch to go through, because we went via Dover ferry last time, and the Channel tunnel said we need a GMR code. Did you have to do that?
No, don't know what that is.
I think it might be a new thing, but they said you won't be allowed to board the ferry because they send these codes electronically through to France, and basically there'll be big trouble if everybody hasn't got this code. But we have to now generate this code.
That might again be something that's not applicable as a Section 19 touring theatre company, because you're not freight. I mean, this is something we did last week with no one asking for anything other than what we provided.
It's crazy because last week is when Channel Tunnel are telling us we need this, and we know we're not freight, but we are classified as freight. You go as freight, even though
no, we went as,
if you've got an ATA carnet, you have to go as freight.
You should have paper.
No, we didn't. In a massive Luton ban, told not to.
This is so weird. You know, every time you ask somebody
different,
you're getting a different answer, aren't you?
Yeah. But that was our first-hand experience last weekend. So yeah.
And the other thing, because I emailed to, sorry to take up too much time, but I emailed to the Department of Culture, Media and Sport to clarify a few things. And we were told emphatically, I'll have it in an email, if you're traveling with your own vehicle, with your own personally owned equipment, you know, you don't need to do this cabotage stuff. You don't need a community license as a driver and so on, because it's all very, very confusing. So that much we kind of felt like we've had a breakthrough. But this news, and we also, another customs agent said we need a C88. Have you ever heard of that?
No, that's not something that's been flagged up for us.
Everything sounded so positive from this point on, and now I'm putting all these horrible rumours in. But I think
I don't know what the C88 is. We were told that if you're in your own van transferring your own stuff, then it's definitely not freight.
Yeah.
Did they need commodity codes?
And you mentioned about codes. You didn't need commodity codes.
No, because it comes under the code of 19.
Yeah, everything comes under a touring theatre, which is the commodity code, number 19. Yeah.
Okay.
But on your list, you have to do, when you do your list, you have to itemise. When you itemise each different thing, there are codes then, and then most of ours were 19, and then it was just like a couple of batteries we had to put down as number 6, and then as the toolbox went as hand tools or something else, but the majority
everything
of it
else, all the set
is number 19.
On our ATA carnet last November, and we've got it for a year, there was no codes, but there was weights and values and country of origin with everything.
Yeah, we also have that.
So we put GB for everything for the country of origin. The weight, you can do the weight at the end. So you can just say an overall weight. So we just made that up. And then you have to put in kilograms, I think. And there's when you
it's just
do
a unit of measure rather than
there's a particular way they want you to do that, and then you have to put a value. So if you lose something, then they want to be able to charge you for it.
Yeah.
If you break anything, bring it back with you. You have to show.
Yeah.
When we were doing the form it has to be filled out a particular way, and it would just get sent back to you with red writing after it until you get it right. So then that's what happened to us when we were filling in the form. Certain ways of putting in the kg bit and then the weights, and they won't let you do anything until you've done half of it right. Then you get through to a person, then they send it back to you, then you do it again, and they send it back to you again, and then you do it again.
This is all the London Chamber of Commerce available on the phone call, and every time you get stuck, you phone them and they'll talk you through it. This is their thing. I'll put the phone number in the chat.
I'm not sure about you. It took us a week of going backwards and forwards to get our first list.
Yeah.
When you've got your list, you can you can just upload the old list. So then it's easy.
We've done that. Yes, we had a problem. There wasn't enough vouchers because we said 3 trips in the year, and we went to Switzerland.
So that needs to go in
and yes, we obviously only had enough trips for 1 voucher. So we contacted them, and they sent us lots of more free vouchers.
Oh, that's brilliant! Oh, that's really handy, because they told us that you can just have as many vouchers as you want. So you just order more than you think you're going to need. And then they asked us to have 60 copies of our list as well, which was strange. Well, you have to have copies of your list for people to take away.
Don't underestimate is the mantra, isn't it?
Yeah, give yourself plenty of time. First time round, plenty of time, a couple of weeks. Get it all signed up and it all done. And then it's really fast. So it came the next day, postal wise. So that was really quick.
Thanks, Liz. I think if you want maybe to send us an email with your query, you can try and follow up maybe with some of the questions and ask a few more people and try and get some answers on those different forms and codes. I think, James, you had your hand up.
Yeah, cheers. Thanks, guys. Really useful. Sounds like a bloody nightmare to me. Just say a couple of quickies, really. So I think you answered it, but you said the ATA Carnet timescale. Were you saying a couple of weeks from beginning to end?
You can do it, allegedly, you can do it in 24 hours.
Okay, so...
But you pay more.
Feed it through.
But it took us a long time. It took us a week to... It takes a day to join and to be...
I've already joined, yeah.
Yeah, okay. And then it took us a week to get the list right, basically, and they kept on sending it back because they want the list in the way that they want the list. So it took us, we'd do a bit each day, and then it'll come back the next day, and then we'd do a bit the next day, and so it took us a week. And
neither of us are that techie as well. We were trying to compile the list from being sat in Spain with the globe and all the kit in the UK. So we were trying to, now there's another one of these. So it was probably faster if you're sat with everything in front of you.
Yeah, and you can use a computer and you've got an idea about things.
Good. Yeah, it's going to take a long time. So in theory, right, you could make an enormous list of everything of all. The thing is, I've got like 12 different shows. None of them are likely to do more than 1 or 2 gigs. Yeah. They could all go on the same list if I could bear to do it, which I don't think I can. They could all go on the same list.
And then you can choose which shows you take on which gigs.
And you just pay the insurance on the ones on that particular. I see. That's going to be the killer. That's what I can't. Yeah. Okay, that's really good.
You can there's somewhere on that the website link there. You can get an estimate of what the costs will be.
You can play around with it. There's a tool.
How many countries you want to go to, and this, that, and the other, and you can see what the costs are before committing.
Yeah, but then all our rig. So for 20 grand's worth of kit, it was £300 for the year.
Yeah, my trouble is at the moment I've only got one day gig. So it's and the real problem with this, which might be a good one for extracts, is like a basic, simple idea that in fact what you've said today is if you want to go to Europe, it's going to take you a hell of a load of time and 600 quid ish. And that, if I'd have known that, a month ago, the trouble is in order to get onto these, you've got to have a gig, but in order to get a gig, you've got to give a quote, and it's like I can't hold. Just the other thing I want to say, what did you what do you do in your contract in relation to tax, have you been doing anything new compared to what you used to do? Because that's the other sort of slight worry that was flagged up to me, is that you need to be there needs to be really strong contractual evidence that you're paying tax in the UK. But you've just been doing what you'd have done before Brexit, have you?
Yeah.
For us, yes, exactly the same. We have an accountant to do that kind of stuff. But yeah, Silvia, what have you experienced?
We have a gig in Germany, and actually probably Lisa can explain that better because she's the one who does all the contracts. But they will withhold tax. And Lisa, can you explain that in more detail? Because we're finding it quite. They said that we could sort of get that back, but I think it's been quite tricky to find out how.
Yeah, it's been really complicated. We have had it before with gigs where sometimes you need to prove your residence in the UK and that you're paying tax in the UK, and then you're okay. But this time around, they will only not withhold the tax if we can prove that more than 50% of the show is publicly funded. And I'm trying to get a letter from the Arts Council to say this. And then I think there's maybe a chance, there's broadly maybe a chance you can claim it back in your corporation tax return, but because we're a charity, so we don't pay any tax, so we can't have it as a tax credit when we do our tax return because we're not paying any tax. So I think we might just have to pay it. It's broadly what I think now. So we will negotiate better next time we are doing a gig in Germany.
Yeah.
Okay, that's slightly terrifying. We've got about 20 grand's worth of bookings in Germany this year. We will need to look into this more.
I imagine they might have brought it up by now if they were applying the same rule. I think it depends on where the funding comes from in Germany as well. Maybe. Yeah. I don't really know what I'm talking about, but that's my best guess at the moment.
Okay.
Scared now.
Thanks, Lucy. I think, Andrew, you had your hand up. I don't know if you answered your question already or not.
Yeah, I was about taxes as well, and I think that was answered, but maybe made more confusing. But thank you.
I think I'll share a link. There's a really useful tax explanation on the Arts Admin Brexit guide, and there's an explanation of how to avoid getting tax withheld and how to claim it back if you've had tax withheld. So I'll share that in the chat or the email after this, the session. Silvia.
I just wanted to ask Nikki and Tim, I've noticed that on the carnet you put down the registration number and the vehicle make. Is that a thing? Like, would you have, is the carnet connected to a specific vehicle, or how does it work?
It is. So when you're taking it over, you have to say what you're taking it over in, but it doesn't, it's not connected. It's not like you're importing a vehicle and then exporting the vehicle again. The vehicle's not included. As long as it's yours, then you're fine, I think. And I think even if it's privately hired, I would imagine that if you've got a hire van, I imagine it's the same.
Okay, so yeah, that's what I was wondering. If you have to hire a vehicle to go across Europe for whatever reason, would that be an issue?
No,
I don't think so. I think where we'd written that was just, he was like, okay, how are you moving it across? Write that down in there.
Yeah.
What vehicle is it? What's the reg? And I think it's just, you go out and you come back in the same vehicle. It doesn't matter.
And that's the same for our trailer as well. And the only thing is, the people on the carnet are allowed to drive the vehicle. If you're having somebody who's not on the carnet drive the vehicle, then they must have a letter of authority from somebody on the carnet to say that they're allowed to drive the vehicle.
It's good to know. Thank you. I think we have time for one very quick last question, if there's any. Or any word of wisdom. I don't think we do. So
go do it. Don't be put off. It's amazing touring Europe. Still go do it.
Can I just ask if anyone else has got any sort of gigs either confirmed or sort of in negotiation in Europe at the moment? Because I think it's really helpful for us just to track what's going on.
I think we see quite a few raised hands, so feel free to drop the details in the chat so that we know. I think maybe Liz, Sarah, and Andrew, if you want to share in the chat.
And also, do people have specific requests for advice or information that they they need, or that we could maybe look at trying to offer in any of these future sessions.
Something about that German tax thing, I'm now petrified.
I would be really grateful for more information on that. Yeah, if anyone knows. I mean, I am kind of stumped.
We think that every canton in Germany has a different system. We've mostly been paid cash when we were there. The other thing is the A1. Has anyone come across an A1? Yeah, some people. So we encountered this for the first time in Switzerland in order not to pay your to be charged national insurance tax. So basically the A1 form is something you have to apply for to HMRC, which proves to the people employing you abroad that you're already paying national insurance in the UK and that there is no break in that payment. And then they won't withhold national insurance contributions. So I don't know if that's useful, but it's just a thing we've just discovered.
That's very useful. Thanks, Liz. I think we're running out of time, sadly, but it was a very interesting to hear your experience, Nikki, Tim and Silvia. So thank you so much. I hope everyone found the session useful, and feel free to share any feedback or send any additional questions you might have. We're going to have another of us dealing with Brexit session next month, so on Tuesday, 24th of May, with Motion House. So save the date, and registrations will open soon. And if you have any specific experience, I see quite a few of you have dates coming up. Feel free to drop us an email, and if you want to maybe share your experience at one of our future sessions, we'd love to have you. And while I've got your attention, I just wanted to tell you maybe about a brand new visa and work permit advice service that we launched in April. So this is for UK-based outdoor art professionals that are arranging performances in Europe. And if you need specific advice for a specific country, let's say you have a tour in Germany and you want to know more about the work permit and visa situation, you can talk to work permit experts, company called Viva La Visa, and we're funding this, so it would be free of charge for you. All the information can be found on the website, and it was also an email I sent this morning sharing the details for the session today. So I hope some of you might find this new service helpful. So thank you everyone again for joining us today, and we hope to see you again next month. Thank you so much.